have right here is a roadmap. So I'm going to start here in the middle, and then that's going to, you'll see how everything else kind of ties together. So first, I'll read this. In preparing to be a culturally responsive practitioner, one must first do the following 3 things before being able to change a single culture, right? So the first thing is assessing the current culture. Second thing is defining the desired culture. And third thing is aligning the systems, processes, and communication to support the transformation. So I'll go back 10 years, okay? How I began my educational journey was in Madagascar. So I was there for 3 years with the Peace Corps, and I had to do community mapping first. So I got to a village, right, in a place where people look just like me but speak a different language. So they're looking at me, they're like, oh, like, you look like us, same stature, features, but your accent's kind of funny, right? So I had to do some community mapping. I had to, as an American, as an African American, I had to go there and map out the community, see who lives here, what's this person's name, who's this auntie, who's this uncle, right? I had to assess the culture, right? Second thing, all right, my purpose. Why was I there? I had to define for myself, all right, what I wanted to teach, right, and how I wanted the flow to go while I was there, all right? And the third thing, aligning the systems, processes, communication to support the transformation. What was the end 3-year goal, and how was I going to backwards plan in order to get there? Now, how I relate that to McClymonds, right? This is my first year in OUSD, teaching at Mac, and I had to assess the culture first, all right? The current culture is this. You have students coming from East Oakland, all right, who have to take care, and walk their siblings to school and ride several buses, right? So now I have to think to myself, all right, why do I have several students who are chronically late coming in at 9:45, 9:50, the class ends at 10:05. They have 10 to 15 minutes to do what, right? I'm like, hey, how you doing? All right, shoes look nice. You only got 10 minutes, right? So how do I best support these type of students? I had to think about the culture, all right? It's a culture of kids coming from East Oakland to West Oakland, chronically late culture, right? A culture in which there was no structure from the previous years in an art space, right? So I had to assess the culture, all right? What am I working with? And now, what is the desired culture, all right? What do I want kids to do, all right? How do I want them to perform and to manage themselves in my class ultimately, right? So it was that training for leadership. And the third thing, aligning the systems, processes, and communication to support it, right? So now I'm going to take this and we're going to go here, all right? We're going to take a hard left. Now, going back to the book, Culturally Responsive Teaching, I thought about something that I did back in January, right? So this is January 7th of this year, coming back after the break. And I really wanted to start to get to know my students more. So after spending a semester at McClymonds, right, I'm starting to get to know them, right? I know all their names, but I want to dive deeper. So I have this book of mine, it's called The Passion Planner. And this is one thing that is in the planner, all right? As you open it, getting ready for the new year, it's called Uncovering Your Compass, Core Values. So you're thinking to yourself, you're reflecting out of like 50 values, right? And you're narrowing it down to 3. What are your core values? So I'm asking 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th or 12th graders, what are their core values, right? Just talking to them like adults, the young adults that they are, right? So here you have a student that chose love, ambition, and loyalty. And so I had to ask them the why, right? And so as they're writing this, they're thinking, oh, all right, we're connecting. This is a conversation. If I were to ask you, what are your 3 values? This is it in written form, right? So it's written communication and using this for the oral communication, right? But getting them to really think on a level that's beyond, okay, just, red and blue makes purple. I'm getting to know them as people, right? Now we're going to shift all the way down, all right? We're going to shift all the way down. This is a picture that was taken in the fall 2018. So this was a few months after I came back from Madagascar, right? All of the lessons that I learned on building a community in a village, right? I lived in a village for 2 years. The third year was an extension, but for those 2 years, right, I saw the same people. I was carrying babies while carrying wells of water, right? I'm sitting down, breaking bread, you know, going up trees with little kids, getting mangoes, lychee fruit. I knew what community looked like every day with the same people, right? We're speaking the same language and transferring that back here with my own people, right here at Reed High School in Atlanta, Georgia. Letting them know what I learned in Madagascar and bringing it home from Africa to Atlanta. And now here it is, 6 years later, high schoolers, a different culture, right? But still doing the same things, right? I want to highlight this student in particular because if you see him, if you hear him, he is the epitome of black boy joy, right? He walks in the school with his grill, all right, with his dunks on, all right, smiling, all right, you can hear him all the way down the hallway, all right? This is black boy joy here. Now, I chose this student for a particular reason because if you spend an hour and 30 minutes with high schoolers every day, you sometimes too will be mentally drained by the amount of conversations and energy that they all have, all right? So for the longest, it took him a while to get regulated, to regulate himself, to just sit down, to get started, say, oh, Mr. Moffitt, can I go to the bathroom? You know, the 20-minute rule, not yet, but I really gotta go. All right, go ahead. He comes back, oh, but I left my charger in the bath, can I go back to the, you know? So very scatterbrained, right? You know, very, you know, it's difficult to get him started on things and to finish him, but to where he is now, to be able to sit down and say, oh, can I work on my project? To have the conscience to say, you know, at any point during the day, oh, I just want to stop by to paint a little bit, 10 minutes on my project, please, before I go back to class. So this kid is really special to me. And I definitely wanted to highlight for the culture his smile with his grill in. Now we're going to shift over, all right, to student work, all right, 2 different students, 9th grade and 11th grade. And I'm not going to read the fine print here, but again, going back to communication, all right? What I want these students to achieve in the classroom, the challenge, which is focusing on motivation and engagement, right? Because how can you come from East Oakland, all right, all the way to school and be motivated to solve y equals mx plus b, all right, when you have other things in your mind? How do you keep these kids motivated for 90 minutes? That's the biggest thing. We got to really talk to these kids. We got to ask them the right questions. And we got to think about, how do we want to raise our kids? How do we want our kids to be treated? With love and respect. With love and respect. And so I'm always introducing them to culturally relevant artists. You know, this is Ernie Barnes down here, and he did the cover of Sugar Shack, Marvin Gaye. There's another one he did of Kanye. So just really focusing on building the relationships with the students. Building the relationships with the students is important, and that's what I try to do every single day. So I'll stop there. The impact I'll end is to build the meaningful relationships, like I said, that is rooted in social, emotional well-being, because that's the biggest thing, all right? Having these conversations. And last thing before I close, there's a quote by this student last Friday. He said, I feel like I can have a real conversation with you. And I remember that. So yeah, that is all. And I appreciate you all for listening.